Marketing is everywhere. From the billboards on the highways to the notifications on your phone, we are constantly bombarded with people trying to sell us stuff. What makes good marketing? Are you doing enough in your life personally and professionally to market yourself? You have questions, and the Marketing Madmen have answers. Search the Marketing Madmen on Google or your favorite podcast provider to get practical marketing advice from expert guests who are shaping and reshaping the business world. They say marketing is a madmen's game. Join the Marketing Madmen every Saturday at 4 p.m. to find out why.
Welcome to the Janelle King Show. I am Janelle King, and this is Extra 106.3, and this is where we discuss kitchen table topics that are typically banned from family gatherings, but are absolutely necessary in order to have a strong republic. For the past few weeks, I have shown you or introduced you to some individuals that are running from office, and these people are running in local races because I felt like it's extremely important that we give a voice to our local candidates. And people have really enjoyed the conversation. Well, this week, I'm going to share a lot more of a conversation that I had. I'm hoping I can get majority of it out during this show, of an individual that I met who is running for a seat in New York. And so his name is Dwayne Moore, and he is looking to challenge Democrat, but the district, it could go in his favor. So I feel like our conversation was just so good that I wanted to introduce him to my audience, as well as allow you to hear that full conversation. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go straight into it after this, my little commentary, and then you'll be able to hear directly from him. We'll have a couple of commercial breaks, but we'll try to get as much of the conversation out as much as possible. So thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. And I definitely look forward to our conversation today.
Absolutely. I've been following you on your social media, so I see that you're getting around, you're doing a lot. Before we get into the political side of things, we need to introduce you to our audience. The aspect of this conversation that I like to kind of hone in on is the candid part. So we're going to ask some very basic questions, but sometimes I like to get a little bit deeper, but it's going to be fun. Okay.
Oh yeah, please. Let's get deep. I love those conversations.
Oh, let's do it. All right. Awesome. Let's start with, where are you from? I know you're in New York right now, but tell me a little bit about your upbringing and what drove you to running for office.
Yeah, so I was raised in a bipartisan household. My dad is a small business owner, and my mom is a union rep. And I just was raised in a household filled with a lot of love, and like family dynamics is really important. And I feel like that's not discussed enough. That's your foundation, especially in the Black community. So they instilled a tough work ethic in me, importance of education. My parents made sure that I knew my history, that you came from people that were inventors, musicians, and all types of things. So I never really felt limited. So I kind of navigated the world, not thinking that I was less than or thinking what people thought of me. It was more so, what am I trying to do? So then I went to college. I graduated from Stony Brook University, and I got to study abroad in China, which was really cool. That was a really mind-blowing experience being there. And then after I started teaching, I was a ninth grade English teacher, then a college counselor, model actor, and music artist, and now I'm here in politics. So yeah.
Oh man. Okay. So many questions.
Yeah.
So I'm really fascinated about this because I was raised in an apolitical home. So we never talked about politics, and that definitely helped me to be able to make an informed decision as I got older. For you, being in a bipartisan household, so you had a Republican and a Democrat in the same house. What type of conversations did you have around politics? Was it contentious or was it more insightful?
It was always more insightful because it wasn't about the party. It was more about your integrity and your morals. And I think we need to get back to that as a country. I feel like now we hear the title, like you're a Republican, you're a Democrat, and regardless of your feelings, we forget that we're all American first. And in our family, it's, family first. So our conversation was more based on what are the facts and being objective. You know, my mom being the union rep, she brought more of the emotional part to it of understanding people and wanting to advocate. And my dad is the very logical person of like, what are the numbers, you know, running a business. So I kind of got to get the best, the combination of the best of both worlds.
That is really fascinating. How did that shape your political leaning?
Hmm. Yeah, you know, I've been all over the place. I was the radical college student. I was the president of the Black Student Union, advocating for things on campus that I thought would make a difference at the time. It gave me nuance, which is really important, and that's lost today. An understanding of both sides and understanding why someone is passionate about their view. So then you could kind of get into those details and attack their point of view and well, not attack, but discuss their point of view more in depth. So I think we need more balance there. And I'm very grateful for my family and what they were able to teach me. And then my grandmother's from the South. She was a Southern woman. She gave me those, the Southern hospitality, as I like to say, of being kind to people. And if you don't have anything nice to say, then sometimes don't say it. So yeah.
We love a good Southern Belle. Okay. I'm slowly becoming one more and more and more. Okay. Like I think that's where my struggle is. My New Haven and Northern aspect is more direct. And then the Southern Belle helps me to be direct in a very kind way. So,
yeah, I'm still learning myself. I still have to balance that.
So with your mom being on the left, but most importantly, representing unions and being in support of unions, how do you feel? Like what are your thoughts around unions?
I think understanding the history of unions and how people needed unions, and I think we still need unions, but we don't need unions to get in the way of progress. And I think sometimes we go too far, and I think everything needs to kind of be in the middle. There needs to be people to advocate, because not every person that runs a business is always going to have the best interests of the workers. But then when we go too far to advocate for workers, to where people who are not getting things done get to stay in their positions, and it's impeding progress, we need to have those discussions. And I feel like sometimes people are too far on the right or left. I think the answer is really in the middle.
You know, I agree. And here's a perfect example. So recently, we see what's happening on the college campuses, and at Columbia University, there was a custodial worker who was attacked by the mob that was occupying that space. And there's a picture, an image of him kind of fighting this guy who was supposed to be protesting with the college students, but turns out he's like 40 years old. He is a trust fund baby, lives in a $2 million penthouse and all this stuff. That being said, he's fighting this guy who's just trying to make a living for his family. And the union came to his rescue. They ensured that Columbia University didn't fire him and didn't reprimand him. And I think they're suing the college now because of the treatment and them not protecting him. So in one regard, I felt like, okay, well, that's a positive, right? That they're able to take action when you're not protected. But at the same time, to your point, when you have like teachers unions, right, who are now saying that we can't fire bad teachers, that becomes a problem. So I agree. What do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, perfect example. And as a former educator, I worked in the charter schools in Newark, New Jersey. They can get rid of teachers at will. And we see sometimes where that could go too far, to where it's for personal reasons, and then you don't have someone to advocate. But when they're bad teachers and they're essentially really taking the future of our kids away, we need to be firm on that. And majority of the reason I'm running is for education, because literally the future of our kids are being taken from us, and for so many different reasons. And when you have majority of kids in New York State that are not reading on grade level, especially Black students, that's a 5-alarm fire. And they don't have enough, they don't have training, technical skills or civics in schools. They just turn into daycare centers. And that's been aided, I think, partially by the teachers union that's been too too far to the left when it comes to protecting teachers' rights and not understanding that, no, your job is to protect the students first and foremost, and the teachers are just to help, build their future. And if that's not happening, we need to reevaluate the whole system. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I agree 1,000%. Let's go into your professional career, because you mentioned being a teacher at one point in your life. And I know you have a fitting, as you're a model as well, and an actor right now. So I know you have a fitting after this. So we're not going to keep you long. But tell me, where are you professionally? Like, what would you say is your professional career today?
I would say my professional career today, just to be short, as a politician. But I'm a man that's worn many hats in my life, and I've always tried. Whatever I've done, my name means the most to me, so I want to do it well. So starting off post-college, ninth grade English, then working as a college counselor. So I was in education for over 5 years. During COVID, I got signed for acting and modeling. It was something I always wanted to do, didn't get the confidence, the stars aligned, so I got signed for it. And then starting to work and book jobs, like there's a billboard of me in Manhattan for a skincare brand. I was like, wow, like I'm doing it. And then I got to work on music. I got to produce my own show. I got to perform in Europe with, I got to perform on the same stage with Genuine, Dru Hill. And that was really cool. And I remember I got back from Germany in December after performing and thinking I have to run. I got tired of returning to my country and feeling it's looking like a third world country. Yeah. I got tired of, the education system that never left my conscious and everything I was doing. And I think I was like, we need good actors, we need good music, but we need more leadership, more importantly. So I think all of the experiences I had informed my decision.
Okay, I have to go back because you look so young. And when you said Genuine and Dru Hill, I was like, wait a minute, pause. That's my era. I'll be 40 this year. So I'm like, wait, I'm missing something here. So
I'm
how old are you?
I'm 29. I'm an old soul though. Yeah, I'm real big. I could go back to Ray Charles. I could go back to Frank Sinatra. I'm just I studied history. So anything that I can get culturally from the past, I try to understand it and learn it so it can inform my future. So but I love my 90s R&B. And then to be on stage with them, what? Like that was just insane.
Man, I bet that was
Yeah. I did a song with his name's Horace Brown. He was signed to Motown. He's a 90s artist. So we worked together. So I got to perform with him in Europe and stuff. And then to be on the same stage with, like, I'm still mind blown by that, but yeah, dream come true.
You know what? In my house, my husband and I, we always had this debate because he's from the Jodeci era and I'm from the Dru Hill era. Okay. And we always had this debate, and we'll play the music. We'll go song for song sometimes. So if you're watching on YouTube or you're listening, I would like to know, who do you like, Dru Hill or Jodeci? Like, we got to win.
That's a good debate. Yeah, that's a good one. That's hard to choose.
That's really hard, right? I mean, I like both of them, but we still battle it out a little bit.
Yeah, they both got their bangers that we listen to. I like it.
They do. I do. Okay. All right. So let's continue on. Let's talk a little bit about your personal life. So are you married? Do you have children? What are you bringing into this political space?
Yeah, I'm single. I want to be married one day when I meet that person that has the same morals and wants the same things. I think that's quite difficult now. Culture doesn't really push some of the traditional things that I was raised in. But yeah, I'm a single man, and I'm able to kind of freely do this.
Stay tuned to catch more of this discussion after the break. You're listening to The Janelle King Show right here on Extra 106.3. Welcome back to the Janelle King Show on Extra 106.3. Now we will continue our discussion with Dwayne Moore, who's running for office as a Republican in New York.
Family that I have to kind of sort through. So I guess that's a benefit, even though I do want that at some point.
That's interesting. I want to dive into that just a little bit because dating right now as a conservative, would you consider yourself to be Republican or conservative?
I would say Republican.
Now, dating as a Republican is so difficult. Like my son is going through this process too, and he wants to date and he wants to get married, and he's like, oh my God, I can't find anybody who carries these traditional values, or women who are okay with gender roles, walking in certain alignments. And so what are you experiencing dating as a Republican and now a politician?
The same thing. I think one, it's when people hear you're a Republican, the Democrats have done so well with making that such a toxic title that people forget that you're human. So I've had people literally like, oh, you're a Republican? I don't hide anything. I tell people like, you're not my parents, so I don't gotta hide anything from you. So it's like, yes, I try to be very straightforward. People don't have an understanding of what history is or what the Black American experience is in this country. We were the most family-oriented people. We were very much so about not depending on the government, doing our own thing, building our own businesses. And I think a lot of times we focus on the fact that Tulsa, Oklahoma was burned down as opposed to it existed. And if we built it once, we can build it again. So I think that the mindset of a lot of people is not, a lot of people aren't necessarily thinking about their future. They're not feeling positive or uplifted, especially in the Black community. So we're kind of seeing our culture fall off a lot of fault lines, whether it's woman, you're a man, or different ideologies, and there's not a lot of unity. And you see that within dating, to where I think now there's like a culture war between men versus women, one wanting to be dominant over the other and having a false understanding of history. And that has a real cultural impact to where we're seeing families not coming together, people not being able to be married, have kids. All of the trips and stuff is cool, but if you don't have family at the end of the day to share it with, it'll be meaningless. And a lot of people aren't really thinking that way. So it's definitely a problematic area that I don't think enough people talk about.
I agree. It's interesting that we're having this discussion because you would think that because there are so many women who are single, who are, have never been married, you would think it would be a smorgasbord of options for you. And I'm encountering that as we're kind of going through this process with our son. And there's something to be said about femininity, masculinity, and how it's being presented. I don't like how it's being presented today because I love being a woman. I'm a woman in every sense of the word. So I don't see why women don't want to embrace that and vice versa for men.
Yeah, I think it's so sad. I thought once I graduated college, I got a career, I did certain things that I would be able to, I thought I'd be married by now. But we have gone so far down culturally. We have no checks and balances. Anything that somebody believes, regardless of how crazy it is or any toxic behavior, you could find your fans online to put a battery in your back. Yeah, back in the day, there were a lot of old heads on the block that'd be like, no, you're not doing this. There was a sense of shame. And this is why in the Black community, even if you had one suit, that one suit had to be spick and span. You had a pride in your way that you went out there. You always was clean cut because you knew that it's not about where I came from, it's about where I'm going. And I want to present my best self. But we're not seeing that from a lot of young men and a lot of young women. And we're seeing a hyper feminization of a lot of men and a hyper masculine woman to where we're not able to come together as one. And I think that's a whole conversation in itself to get into, but to touch on it lightly, I completely agree, and it's sad.
Yeah, we'll have to bring you back and have a conversation about that because I would love to talk to you about dating as a conservative and really having a real in-depth conversation about that. But let's get into your political career because I want to make sure we have enough time to really talk about this. So in Georgia, which is where I live, we have state house seats, state senate seats, county commissioners and stuff like that. But you are running in an assembly district. Can you explain to our listeners and those who don't live in New York about your district and how it's set up?
Yes, so I'm running for state assembly in New York. District 29. It's a primarily residential area in Queens. It's one of the most wealthy areas for African American and Black families to live in the country. Parts of my area is historic, like Addisley Park, where Malcolm X and famous jazz artists lived. It was the place for thriving African Americans to move that wanted to raise a family during the Harlem Renaissance and stuff like that, so they could get the suburban experience. A lot of people don't know that, unfortunately. And assembly is essentially like the Congress for the state. So my reason for really running is just because, again, the kids. When I walked in my district petitioning, you see a whole bunch of young men around roaming, no skills, seems like no sense of purpose, which leads way to getting in trouble. The migrant crisis on top of that, where we've just flooded our city with over 180,000 migrants. Over 10,000 migrant children are now being added to an already stretched public school system that's already under-resourced. We have a historic teacher shortage. And now you're giving priority to kids from other countries when our own kids is already struggling. It's not like every kid was doing perfectly fine and we have unlimited resources. And then, the roads, I said, I got tired of returning back to the United States and feeling like a third world country. I was driving on the Autobahn in Germany. I got on bullet trains in China. I got to see a lot. And then I came back here and I said, this is what we were known for that we no longer do. Our roads are bad. My infrastructure is crumbling apart. We have the same trains from the 1970s on the tracks, trailing in New York City. But yet we have all of these politicians that keep giving excuses, and saying things like Black Lives Matter or this lives matter to make us feel comfortable and complicit while they're doing nothing. So I knew that I was uniquely positioned in my district to be able to say certain things that other candidates maybe can't, and that needed to be said, because I have a very high standard for what we were and what we can be. And I feel like we need to start having authentic conversations to get back to that. So I knew I had to put my hat in the ring and run.
No, oh my God, there were so many things you said. My brain was just going in so many different directions. I want to get into the migrant crisis in a little bit, but I want to backtrack and talk about your district demographic. Is it primarily or predominantly African American?
It was, yeah, but now there's a lot of Black immigrants from the Caribbean and Africa that came in after the immigration bill in the 60s. So it has diversified to where actually I feel like now it's probably minority African American and more Black immigrant, Black American population that's in. So yeah, I would say it's a mix.
And the person who held the seat prior to you, because you're not the incumbent, correct?
No, the person in the seat is the incumbent. Yeah, she's ran unopposed since 2015. She's never had a general election.
She a Democrat?
She won in a special election in 2015, never had a general election. And that's another issue is that Democrats get to define your message when no one shows up. So they get to tell you what they're about. They get to say you're racist because you're not even there defending yourself. And I'm very big on debate. That's what America was founded on. It's not for me to tell you it's moral or not. It's for us to have a debate and for the people to decide. But when people don't even want to have that, that's not a democracy. And in New York State, we have one party rule, Democratic governor, Democratic state senate, Democratic state assembly. And it's been that way now, I believe, since 2018. Things have rapidly gotten worse. Limited smoke shops around, like we legalized marijuana. That's what people wanted to do. But why do we have 5 smoke shops in a 2-block radius? How much weed are people really smoking, especially when you have a whole bunch of young men around, not with no jobs, no skills. And then they could just make excuses for things. And I don't trust the people who've been overseeing the issues to now be the ones that fix it. They have to leave. So I think change has to come.
That is so fascinating. So the economic growth in that area now, it seems like this is probably either middle class or upper middle class as far as your demographic breakdown. I'm sorry, your economic breakdown. But what is the economic growth look like, or how do you plan to help with the job creation in that area?
Yeah, so Merrick Boulevard is the main street in my area. You see nothing but closed businesses. And a lot of people, you're driving around, you maybe have other things, you don't really understand what that means. Every closed business is generational wealth that's lost. That's a business that's not being passed down to families. That's skills that's not being passed down to kids. And in our area, that's Black families that's not owning businesses. And we know the Black business ownership rate has decreased since the civil rights movement, such as home ownership. A lot of the statistics that we were proudly working towards seems to have gotten worse post-civil rights movement. So with that reality, to me, it's getting back to the basics. Fixing the roads so you can make it actually attractive for people to come, expanding the subway system. And where I'm from, we're in a transit desert. There's no subway access. I have to take a 50-minute bus to the nearest subway. So there's a lot of businesses in my area that would be more thriving if there was actually subway access, but we don't have that. Reinvesting in the beautification of the area. There's a lot of graffiti and stuff around. I don't want kids to normalize this neglect of their community, which we have. We've seen this in the Bronx. We see this in various areas where it used to be very prominent, but they got destroyed. We're raising kids to just see this as your environment. There's dumping. We need to clean up our area for sure. And a lot of the politicians just don't care. Like, I don't know, they drive on the same roads I do. They don't get frustrated by that. I don't think this is a norm. Flooding is a big issue in my area. So it's getting back to the basics of serving the people, not trying to put all this money into cultural things to make you feel good, not getting people caught up on welfare and saying, oh, we need to open more shelters. I always say Democrats should be judged on how many people they get off of welfare, not opposed to how many people they keep on. So every new homeless shelter they open up means that they're failing. They're failing in their duties. So that's my job in making that message known. And I want to bring in new businesses in. We should have cafes. For us to have all of these family homes and stuff like that, the quality of life in my area is actually pretty low. And it shouldn't be that way when you actually look at the economic activity in the area from the homeowners there. So it's just not adding up.
So compare and contrast your well, let's not compare, let's contrast your platform item with your opponents. I want to know the key differences between what the incumbent is doing and what you're planning to do.
I wish I could find her platform. But on her website, she really doesn't have anything but about me and donate. So I'd have to defer to her about that. But that's what happens when you run unopposed. You don't really have to present ideas. Which I get, no shots at her, but I get that. You don't really have to work for your position.
Right.
So my thing is, I know she's voted for cash bail. She voted, which has been horrible because, as I keep saying, I have very high standards for Black people. Like, I don't think that we're any less intelligent. I don't think there were any less anything. I just think is when the standards are removed and we don't have family dynamics and morals and stuff like that, any group could go astray. But the solution isn't to decriminalize crime, to let people know, oh, y'all can't stop committing crime, so let's just remove that. So now we have an open door policy to where I think less people now in New York commit crimes than previously, but the people who do commit an astronomical amount and get to get out. She voted for driver's licenses for undocumented people. To me, if you're saying that you want to give us a $15 congestion tax to enter Manhattan, you keep raising the tolls. How is it that you're going to even flood our streets more with people who are not even citizens or not even legal status to be able to get licenses? And for security purposes, that just doesn't make sense.
No.
So my policies is very much so of fixing the state for the people, fixing the roads, investing our infrastructure. Why don't we have high-speed rail in this country? China has more high-speed rail than the rest of the world combined. We're saying that we're the greatest country ever. Okay, we need to show that. So I'm less about, all of the cultural nonsense that the Democrats like to do to make people feel complicit and doing nothing. And I'm about getting this country moving again.
Okay, two things that I've got to talk about, and that's China, but we're going to put a pin in that for a quick second, particularly because you live there. But licenses, can they even get insurance? What kind of craziness is that?
It's insane. In New York State or the city council, they're trying to get people who are undocumented or don't have legal status to vote in our elections, just as the same thing DC has done. And I'm like, what bigger slap in the face of the Black community is saying, I don't even need to go fight for your vote anymore. I'm just going to add 700,000 people to the voting records. And of course, who are they going to vote for? We just incentivize them to break our federal immigration laws by giving them $1,300 debit cards, which is more than the average person gets who is on food stamps. We're going to put you in 4-star hotels. We're going to take away parks for kids and stuff and put migrant shelters. It's insane. And I think New York got caught playing politics, trying to say we're a sanctuary city and a sanctuary state because you're not on the border. And once they got bust up here, because you said you had all these resources, now the city's in free fall. And then I think it's strategic in my area. They put a lot of the African migrants in my area because, they won't notice the difference and stuff like that. It's all by design. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That is, wow. I never even thought about that. Man, okay.
I'm very observant and I'm very detail oriented. So I pay attention to all the little things and stuff like that. It's all by design.
I never even thought about the placement, but let's go ahead and talk about the migrants because this was a perfect segue into that. The migrant crisis that's taking place in New York is just out of control. I'm watching it, and I want to couple, your thoughts on the crisis, but I also want to add in there, what are your thoughts on Eric Adams and the job that he's doing? Because the media can portray one thing, but you're living there, you're in it. Yep. Do you feel like he's handling this to the best of his ability, or what do you think about that?
No, I think he's playing politics, and he knows he's playing politics because he said the city will get destroyed by this, but yet he feels like he needs to appease. his base. I think he gets a pass because he's just not as bad as De Blasio. Essentially, like De Blasio would be the worst. So and I want Eric Adams to succeed. Anybody, Democrat or Republican, that gets put into a position, regardless of whether I agree with you or not, you're there. I want you to succeed because we're all counting on you. And I believe Eric Adams is a lot more rational than maybe he pretends to be in front of the media. But like they're trying to open up a migrant shelter in Cambria Heights outside of my district and near my area. And the neighborhood is up in arms about this, trying to convert an old Rite Aid into a migrant shelter. And now they're playing politics with, oh, well, we didn't say it was confirmed, and oh, we don't know. This has a real life consequence. And he should be calling for the federal government to close the border, which is in President Joe Biden's duty to do. He already has the powers to close the border. He's allowing an open invasion of over 10 million people into the country. That's like emptying Jamaica out 3 times over. That is insane. And then when you talk about city planning, every city is supposed to be planned out for the density of the population. Where are these people supposed to go? And then the state of California is trying to give 20% down to migrants to buy homes when there's already a historic housing shortage and they have the largest homeless population in the country. It's like, this is not about being against migrants. I say this is about being pro-American. I understand these people, like they're looking for a lot of opportunities, many of them, even though we know that there are agents from other countries coming over and stuff, which is quite alarming on a national security level. But it's about making sure our resources are going here. In New York City, when less than 50% of the kids read on grade level and 36% of Black kids are on grade level, we have a teacher shortage. How can you afford to put 10,000 additional kids into that already stressed school system with kids that you already know have behavioral issues? I worked in the schools. It's not an easy environment. You're putting kids in from different cultures that don't even speak the language. It's a recipe for disaster. So it's not a thing about politics. It's just about morals, and this is bad policy. And they try to play the race card and this is racist and stuff. I want to kill those arguments because we try to disguise the moral part about, oh, you're against people, from the logical thing. This is not a logical solution. This is not logical in any stretch of the imagination. And Joe Biden needs to put an end to this. He's literally neglecting his duties to defend the country and then using our tax dollars to incentivize people to break our federal laws. It's morally wrong, and we need to put an end to it.
Man, I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more with everything you just said. Let's talk about that, since we mentioned Biden, which was another perfect segue into some national politics.
Yeah.
The conversation around China and China being a huge threat, and TikTok and all of that. Having lived in China, and please share with us, why you were there or what got you there. But having lived there, what are your thoughts on this TikTok ban and China as a whole?
Yeah, so I was studying abroad there. I was there for a month. I lived there. I got to travel to different parts. I was there at university. So my perspective on China is very unique. Well, one, I'll talk about their infrastructure. It is absolutely amazing, the work ethic of the Chinese and what they're able to build. I was blown away. Cities that were put up in, seems like few years. It took us 10 years, it seemed like, to build the World Trade Center. They put up entire cities in that time period. Bullet trains. I was on a train that went over 200 miles an hour, and I keep updated what's going on over there. They're working on one now that goes over 700. So they're not just talking, they're showing us. And this is what happens when a country invests in itself and its people. Our public infrastructure is crumbling. Our roads, our mass transit system is crumbling, but all we see is a whole bunch of high rises, luxury apartments, and offices. They're actually investing in their people. But what I would say is America has our arts, our sense of individualism. It's unmatched. That's why America will always be undefeated to me. But when it comes to TikTok is absolutely a national security threat. Algorithms is already dangerous, and we need to have a broader conversation about that. But when you're allowing algorithms to be controlled by a foreign actor that you don't know whether they have your best interest, and we've confirmed that they don't, you can literally control the minds of people by how the algorithm can slowly but surely introduce you into radical ideas. And, not choosing a side on the war, I stay out of that. But when you have students that are willing to get arrested to liberate a country that they'll never go to, when they're not concerned about liberating their own cities that's been rotting into the ground, that to me is alarming. Not saying that they shouldn't focus on it or they not can't feel connected. No one likes to see war generally. But when you have students like students I taught, Newark, New Jersey, which has been hampered by poverty, hampered by the war on drugs and the crack epidemic, and you have students that will be willing to get arrested for a country they've never been to, a country they'll never go, instead of the issues in their own city, you have to think what's influencing that. And we already have a question about our own social media companies and how they managed the 2020 election and how they managed the COVID epidemic and whether we were getting the right information or not and who has moral authority. So now you're just going to lend that to a foreign actor that we know is an active competition for global dominance. So I view China as not an evil actor per se, but they're a nemesis in a way. They're in competition to be on the top. As any country that believes in their people, China has a very rich history, very, very rich history. So they should be, but I strongly will believe in the red, white, and blue if we have competent leadership to make sure we don't fall. And right now we don't.
Do you think that the ban has gone far enough? There are people who feel like it should be an outright get rid of it. We don't need any parts of it. And then I think what recently happened was they basically said that the ownership has to shift to an American ownership, which is more of a business move than anything else. So
yeah, it's again playing politics because nobody wants to be the person to say no. But this is what happens when you have leadership. It's not about being liked, it's about what's being right. And China has a different version of TikTok for their own kids because they know that your kids shouldn't just be sitting there scrolling on an unchecked algorithm, putting unlimited content. It has a time limit on it, and also it pushes things that's learning.
Stay tuned to catch more of this discussion after the break. You're listening to The Janelle King Show right here on Extra 106.3. Welcome back to the Janelle King Show on Extra 106.3. Now we will continue our discussion with Dwayne Moore, who's running for office as a Republican in New York.
And English and things about national pride and civics, it's a completely different thing. So for me, I think we need to have a broader conversation about social media and kids. What are we exposing them to? It seems like now, and I have to take this to a broader area, no one seems to have a care about what the kids are exposed to. Kids are supposed to be protected at all costs. When we're introducing them at a younger and younger age to more vile content, that's going to have a bad consequence in the long run. So what are we exposing our kids to, right? If we're not having families, as I said, 2 out of 8 Black kids are in a dual parent household. So that means majority don't have the complete support system, at least on face value, statistic wise. So where are they getting their morals from? Who's watching them? Who's teaching them? TikTok and social media and YouTube and stuff like that. Well, we need to really get serious about putting age restrictions on it. And I think we should even experiment with temporarily removing comment sections to see what people react. We need to get real experimental with this new technology and AI to make sure it's not rotting our brains. And right now, I feel like we have weak leadership that's not willing to do anything, and they're pandering to the tech companies.
I think that's a great point. I look at our young people and I see them becoming weaker and weaker.
Yes.
And I mean, like mentally, right? It's just they're so emotionally selfish to a certain degree. You know, it's everything is anxiety when sometimes it's just regular stress, you know, that you're going to feel.
Life things.
Life. It's just lifing, you know?
Yeah.
Everyone's depressed and on antidepressants when you probably should just get up and push through. You know, and people talk about that as if we're saying something that's wrong, but we're giving you the tools to succeed, to survive.
Exactly.
So, you know,
like I have a joke with my friend. I'm like, you know, I wonder if the slaves could have took a mental health day. Like, I wonder if they had that ability, you know, and how they were able to get through it.
Come on, Black people. Come on, Black people.
There's a balance between, I think, where we go too far, but there's a balance between, you know, saying like you don't want to overwork people, you want people to have a quality of life, but that's not coming from, making people so sensitive that they can't do anything. And I actually have a show that I created. It's I submitted it to some festivals. I'm waiting to hear back, but it's called Toxic Sensitivity. And it's a dry humor show, the pilot, that talks about how we've gotten so sensitive to where everything triggers and we can kind of remove someone from being human. Like there's a joke in the show where talking to some coworkers and like, what are you doing this week? And I'm like, oh, I'm going to Texas. And they're like, you're going to a red state? I'm like, I got family and friends there. Like it's just a state. Like, and it creates this whole awkward dynamic just off of this understanding of or what the culture is saying of something, as opposed to it's just a state. There's good and bad people everywhere.
The number of people that in Atlanta who act like they can't go to rural Georgia is just beyond me. I'm like, what are you talking about? Just go. They're great people.
There's good and I think for African Americans, what it has done has pigeonholed us to not look at opportunities outside of the community. Like if you want to open a business, you don't need to open a business around people that just look like you, especially if you're running a business, not a charity, right? Like you should be, you want to get into, like 'cause my family, we run a facility services company, and our idea is doing it with quality. So we don't run a Black company, we run a company owned by Black people. So that's the first thing.
Right.
And when you have this, I think this inferiority complex, which I think a lot of us have, to where subconsciously, which I understand the history, we think of ourselves as less than, and it makes us not seek different opportunities, go around different people. And listen, people will like you or they won't. You can't control that. What you can control is how you show up. What you can control is your work ethic. And from the history of this country, we had the saying of we work twice as hard to get to where they are. Not with the understanding that we can't get there, but we're going to work twice as hard. We're going to get there anyway. So we need to bring that back. And to me, I look at people as human. I know the history very well. I studied it, but it's all on an individual basis because I don't want to assume negative of someone and then remove myself from opportunities.
No, you're 100% correct. I, my husband and I, we're business owners, and because we're 100% owner of our company, it's, it's considered a Black owned company, but I have to explain to people that Black owned doesn't mean Black only. It means that we just happen to be Black and we own the company.
Yes.
However, all of our employees, we have several employees, and it runs the gamut. It's very, very diverse because we're looking for who can do the
best
job.
People. Yes, the best people. Yeah, that's the most important thing. That's just like they'll say Black excellence. I'm like, I just believe in excellence.
Right.
Not Black excellence, meaning it's only, in this way.
Is that better than white excellence? Okay.
Yeah, I want to be excellent across the board, meaning any demographic could look at me.
Right.
Example. And I don't think enough of us have that mindset now. And again, I understand where it comes from, but it's holding us back because it's not the history. If we know the Apollo, we know Harlem, we know Detroit, areas where Black people thrived, opened businesses. A lot of the white people were coming to them, and that's why they wanted to shut them down, because it was like, wow, they weren't Black excellent, they were excellent, so excellent that they created world-renowned spots that people all around the world came to. Where is that now?
Exactly.
Right, with all of the social media stuff. So there's a disconnect from reality and what we put on social media, how we want to feel. And I think that's also going into why so many people have anxiety and stuff, because we're pumping a narrative that's not connected. We could have all the representation on TV, but if it doesn't meet the reality, that's an issue. Before, the reality was we were the business owners and stuff, and we didn't show it on TV. Now I feel like it's flipped. Yes. And we can't be competent. I mean, we can't be accepting of that.
Right. Okay, so before you go, I like to do a fun game of Would You Rather, because I feel like it helps to get people to understand your thought process and, being quick on your feet. So you can't give an explanation. So, all right, you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Would you rather live without internet for a year or without your phone for a year?
Internet. I value talking to people too much, and the internet can be stupid. So,
Thank you so much for listening to the Janelle King Show right here on Extra 106.3. I am so excited that we're able to have these discussions, and I hope you're enjoying them. If you want to listen to this conversation in its entirety, you can go to the Janelle King Show on YouTube, where you will be able to watch as well as listen. But please remember, if you're over there, to like, comment, share, subscribe. do whatever feels right to you, but please make sure that you do something because it absolutely helps the show, and it's absolutely free to you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Next week, I think we'll be back to me ranting on some topic that has been on my heart. I have a couple of things in the works, so I'm really, really excited to share that with you. Thanks again for tuning in. Again, make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe if you go to the YouTube page. And if you go to the podcast part right here on Extra 106.3, leave me a little note. Again, thank you, thank you, thank you. Until next time, enjoy your
This morning in North Carolina, wheels are spinning. Determination is winning. A passion is now a thriving business, and it shows no signs of slowing down. How? The power of a conversation, like the one Clint Spiegel had with First Horizon Bank about starting a bike wheel manufacturing facility in Asheville. Now it's not just talk, it's rubber meets road. First Horizon Bank. Let's find a way. Go to firsthorizon.com/Clint. First Horizon Bank, member FDIC.
Watches and whiskey. Do I have your attention? This is Jonathan Geller at D. Geller & Son Jewelers, and we're celebrating summer and Father's Day with something we've never done before. This Saturday, we'll have Atlanta's biggest and best selection of new and pre-owned Swiss watches under each of our roofs. We're talking fan favorites like Tissot and Omega, showstoppers from Rolex, and it gets better. With help from Old Fourth Distillery, we're providing complimentary whiskey tastings while you browse. It's this Saturday, June 8th, in all 3 D. Geller & Son showrooms. Learn more at dgeller.com.
Marketing is everywhere. From the billboards on the highways to the notifications on your phone, we are constantly bombarded with people trying to sell us stuff. What makes good marketing? Are you doing enough in your life personally and professionally to market yourself? You have questions, and the Marketing Madmen have answers. Search the Marketing Madmen on Google or your favorite podcast provider to get practical marketing advice from expert guests who are shaping and reshaping the business world. They say marketing is a madman's game. Join the Marketing Madmen every Saturday at 4 p.m. to find out why.